This is what retirement's all about. In October 2025, my wife and I downsized, packed up our bags, and moved our cat to the Philippines. Here's a cat enjoying what we laughingly call cat TV. That's just her favorite spot in the condo, especially when birds fly by. We put the slide together to help others who may be planning on traveling to the Philippines with a pet dog or cat. We spent a lot of time between calling the Philippines, talking with their vet, and coordinating with airlines to figure all this out. We thought this might help some of you have an easier time of it. I like to start with what the finished state looks like. Here's what all of this is going to boil down to successfully move your pet to the Philippines. A pet carrier that is of the type and size required for the airline reservations that accept a cat, an import permit issued by the Philippines, a health certificate issued by the U.S. government that is only good for 10 days, arriving with the import permit, health certificate, and all pet documentation, recognizing the pet will be stressed from the long overseas flight and have some de stress plans built in, get Philippine pesos at the nearest ATM or money exchange on arrival. Immigration will send you to the pet station before they will deal with you. Note, immigration both in the U.S. and Philippines will also require you to get the cat out of the pet carrier for a visual inspection multiple times. We kept a harness on the cat so we could just clip a leash on in the harness, and then have positive control of the cat as we brought her out of the carrier. Immigration told us that sometimes cats get scared and run off and was glad we had a leash. Caveats. This relates to our experience with importing a house cat to the Philippines. We traveled to the Philippines in October 2025, as I mentioned. As we walk you through the process, we'll list the websites that provide current information so you can identify any additional and new requirements that may come up. Start early. This is going to take much longer than you realize. We wound up being in the States over a month longer than we wanted to just to finish up the paperwork. A lot of that time was spent by us calling long distance in the Philippines and sending emails to figure out the process and providing here. Toward the end of the process, you'll be on a tight timeline. I'll cover that in another slide. Dogs are pretty much the same process, but some of the shots are different and the documentation is pretty much the same. Just minor differences, but the differences are obvious as we go along. Important. Ensure your vet is a USDA certified veterinarian. You will need a USDA certified veterinarian throughout this whole process. A high percentage of veterinarians are USDA certified. Our regular veterinarian was. A regular veterinarian's paperwork just won't be accepted. Only a USDA veterinarian's paperwork is accepted. That includes the final submission for the health certificate to the US government. Additional vaccinations. Different countries require specific vaccinations for issues and concerns within that country. Although we had a USDA vet and had given our cat that vet's recommended shots for traveling throughout the South Pacific and Mexico, we needed additional shots to import to the Philippines. Have a way of calling the Philippines long distance economically. If your paperwork is rejected or you run into an issue with the paperwork, calling from your cell phone is very expensive. We have an international calling plan through AT&T, but that's only to the US, not from the US to another country. We racked up a few $100s in calls figuring all this out, then switched to an international call system that would have only have cost $20. And it's just a pay as you go type of system. We loaded up with $20 and I'm still using it months later as I figure out the Philippine phone system. But that's another episode. We put $20 in an account with keepcalling.com and it worked well. That was about an hour of calling. However, you can just get your questions asked by email, but I needed a bit more understanding of the process, and nowhere did I find where all of this info was in a single place. Keep all your records. In some situations, pets can be potentially held up in immigration or in some circumstances destroyed at customs discretion. Keep all your paperwork handy on your carry on, not checked luggage. Also, be aware that if for some reason your visa isn't renewed or you need to leave the country, you'll need your paperwork for importing your pet back to the US. And we kept all of the paperwork in a carry on in a pocket where we could easily find it. We also ensured both of us had digital copies of everything in our phones, just in case, but that wasn't needed. We'll cover all this in detail as we go on. Let's go over the timeline. Some of the items for importing your pet have specific timelines that are finite. If you don't make the timeline, you may need to start over. It's easy, but things need to be done in sequence. The first category is things that you can do more than 60 days in advance, but don't wait less than 60 days out. You'll be glad when you started on this even further in advance. All the items in the greater than or equal to 60 days can be done 6 months or more in advance if you want to, but 3 to 4 months should be sufficient. Don't forget, you'll also be downsizing, packing, and planning other things. We had problems getting our vet scheduled for some of this, in which one appointment took 3 weeks, so start earlier than later. Some of the standard vaccinations, such as rabies, you could purchase a 1 year shot lasting 1 year, yeah, 1 year shot lasting 1 year or a 3 year shot. We opted for a 3 year shot whenever possible. If we don't get long term retirement visa, we want to be positioned to fly back and have all the vaccinations. Also, we wanted to take our time in selecting a veterinarian in the Philippines. We figured we'd just go for nail clippings, and if we're comfortable with the veterinarian, try out the veterinarian for an annual checkup before trusting a vet for something more serious if it comes up. You'll also need to download the Bureau of Animal Industry instructions, the website link above. It'll guide you through the online process. I'll give you some pointers where we thought the instructions weren't too clear, but let's cover all of these in much more depth. You're going to need a physical address to this process in the Philippines. There's various options. I'll go over some pros and cons. The paperwork you're submitting will require your pet to be quarantined for a specific number of days at the address you're listing. And you'll need to have that address early in the documentation process. We had used Facebook Marketplace in some areas. One of the dangers of renting sight unseen is if you follow Facebook Marketplace in your city of destination, it often happens in the US as well. The person you send money to doesn't have the authority to rent. Sometimes the leasee subleases as an Airbnb, and there's no way to find out who you sent your money to. From prior trips, we have a few known locations where we've rented from people who are legitimate property managers who were represented the condo owners. But we were looking to go somewhere we had never been. Hotel was one option. Not all take animals, and that's a more expensive stay as the quarantine period. I think ran our paperwork was for a house cat to be quarantined at our destination address for 30 days. We had originally considered the Go Hotel. We had stayed at the one in Go Dumaguete and liked it. It's a pet-friendly hotel. Our original plan was to stay in a hotel for a few months while we quarantine the cat and look for a condo. Taking our time to look for the condo, get the right one. I was concerned that if the room was cleaned while we were out, the cat might run out of the room, and I really didn't want to keep the cat in a kennel while we were out. A condo with a 1 year lease was where we wound up landing. We were searching for condominium listings in a few different ways, and we're using YouTube to see what foreigners might recommend, and saw a condominium complex we liked. We lucked out and found an American blogger with a Philippine wife that did property management for condos. We did some checking to confirm they're legitimate. One way is to call the condominium management itself. Legitimate property managers representing owners of the condo are known to the condominium management. You might have a friend in the Philippines you can use as an address for 30 days. You can try an Airbnb, but sometimes what you get isn't what you thought you'd get. In the end, we opted to go through a property manager representing the owner of the condo, which is common here. However, the amount of intermediary services vary. I rented a condo in Dumaguete through a good and honest condo manager, but being a financial and paperwork intermediary was the extent of the services. Problem came up. I was on my own to figure it out, but I was given suggestions. At this point, you'll need to register as an importer. This will allow you to submit your pet documentation and vaccination information for getting your pet import paperwork at a later date. At this point, just click on the link to register as an importer. On this page, click the BAI one-time account pet import. That um, That'll take you to this page, which is the data sheet for registering as an importer with the Philippines. Your first and last name should be self-evident. We're both U.S. citizens, so in the pull-down box for citizenship, you'll see U.S. citizen listed. The passport number is essentially the number on your U.S. passport on the same page as your picture. The passport validity date is not the date it becomes valid, but the expiration date. In the tin box, just put use passport number. Now, over here is where you'll need to give the address of where you're going to be quarantining your pet in the Philippines. We imported into Manila, but quarantined in Davao. After submission, they expect you to submit a copy of your passport page with your picture and passport number to complete your registration as an importer. That's the picture page on your passport. This is a major step we missed. This caused a delay later in the process where we had to go back to this particular part, um, email the picture in so that we could then complete the registering as an importer process before we submitted for the documentation for the import permit for the specific animal. Not all the required shots can be in 3-year doses. Our vet offered the rabies and feline FPV in a 1 or 3-year vaccine. We opted for the 3-year. There are vaccinations that the Philippines government will require for granting the paperwork for importing. The USDA veterinarian is the only type of veterinarian that is certified by the US government for confirming you have certain vaccinations. Fortunately, a good percentage of vets in the US have that certification. Your USDA vet can help you through the shots needed to import a dog and give you an idea of what range of options you have there, whether it's 1, 3 years, that sort of thing. I'm not familiar with the shots for a dog. I'd also recommend emailing the Intercommerce website you registered with to see which documents they currently need, just in case. I'll state that our vet was concerned with not going through a professional company, but I don't think it's necessary if you have all your paperwork completed and current paperwork with you prior to leaving and when you arrive. Now, 30 days out, you need to get vaccinations, microchip, and have the paperwork ready to upload to request an import permit. Our flight plans were delayed because we couldn't get an appointment with our vet for almost 4 weeks. Once you have the import permit, you'll have a 60-day window for importing. However, you'll need a health certificate upon arrival in the Philippines. You can lose your pet if you don't arrive with one, so this is critical. The U.S. government issues the health certificate, so your vet will need to submit to the federal government, and you get a reply 1 to 5 days later. Once you get the health certificate, it's only good for 10 days. Therefore, you're on a tight window. From being at the vet for the final paperwork and needing to arrive in the Philippines, I'd recommend the following order. Get the vaccinations, including deworming. You'll need proof of deworming. The deworming is only good for 30 days. We wound up getting delayed trying to get an appointment with the vet, so we opted to deworm again at the final appointment for the health certificate just to ensure all of our paperwork was current when we landed in Manila and all the vaccinations were current. within specs. Apply for the import permit. You should be able to go online and see your confirmation. Once you have your import permit approved, print it out and have it with you both for the vet visits and throughout your flight. Follow the BAI user manual that I mentioned earlier. I'll provide some additional information that I didn't catch on how to work through to make following the BAI manual easier, at least for me. To apply for the import permit, go back to the Intercommerce website and log in. You'll note that you need to submit a bunch of documentation as a part of the process. I'd read this whole process on that manual and then get your PDF files ready before proceeding. Once you log in, click on the Department of Agriculture link. You want to click on Create Open SPS Import Clearance for one BAI one-time importer. Later on, when you go back to check on the status that they've after it takes so many days to approve it. Once you, if you want to click on and see what the status currently is in that approval process, you'd also go here and click on that link as well. And then you click on submit. Next, it takes you to this screen. It says, please select your company. This is a drop down menu here. Please select your company. That will list your name. Don't worry about the company term. I think it's because the system is also used by companies that do importing of animals. You're in the right spot. Your name should appear in that drop down list. And then once you select your name, click next. I'll let you use the BAI users manual for the rest of the process for applying for your import permit. It's pretty self-explanatory from that point forward. Once you get your import permit, remember it's only valid for 60 days, so you have to arrive in the Philippines within 60 days, or you need to start the paperwork over. For each category of documents the BAI needs uploaded to the website, they all need the files in one single PDF. There's a couple different groupings. One was vaccinations. The process I used myself was to put the vaccinations on a table, take a picture of each one of those documents. And then I put those picture files into a Word document using multiple pages, and then in Word do file print rather than to a printer, print to PDF, and that created my PDF document. As an optional process, if you don't have Word for Windows, you could just go down to a print and copy mail service with the thumb drive, and they should be able to scan them for you. What I would do is put those picture files in a directory under the grouping you want, and then have them take each of those directories and turn each of those directories into a single PDF, so you got the right documents grouped up together as you need them. It's nothing hugely fancy. Here's just a picture from one of the pictures I took with my phone of the invoice showing that the cat has had that particular shot. You'll notice that there's a customer name and an animal name on the document, and they require that so they can match up. Hey, this invoice goes with this particular cat. For pictures of the cat, they didn't require anything fancy. Our first picture wasn't acceptable. I think it because it was just a face shot. I took a front and side view, and that was acceptable. Ignore the messes. We were in the process of packing and downsizing. In the first picture, to get the front view, I was playing with the cat with a napkin, and she took it away and stood proud for a moment with her achievement of taking it away from me and winning. The side view was harder. I just had to wait for her to nap on her favorite blanket and then took the picture. But this is the actual Word document that I took the two pictures of the cat from a cell phone, dumped it on the Word document, file print to PDF, and away you go. Flight reservations. Those took me a while to figure out, so hopefully this is going to save you a hell of a lot of work. In regards to the pet carrier, I looked at the Alaska and PAL Philippines airline requirements. They're very similar. Um, Essentially, it's got to be a hard case. It needs a little slot for putting a zip tie in to positively lock the door so the cat won't get out, that sort of thing. Um, we just went to a national pet chain and bought a pet carrier from them. The state had made flight requirements, and that worked really well. Um, we purchased the smallest carrier that we felt gave our cat enough room to stand up and walk around in, so that the airlines would be happy. We were sure that the different airlines would be happy with the carrier. We have a small cat, so that was pretty easy for us. So be sure you look at the size requirements when you go to buy the pet carrier. Um, Not all flights will allow pets. Essentially, there's a special cargo section of the plane has to be available and prepped. Um, you're not going to want to make online flight reservations as usual. Like if you're like me, you're used to just popping in the app. We're going to go to one of those and just making flight reservations quick, simple, and easy. Um, when you're dealing with a pet, you actually have to talk to a live person, and they're going to spend some time on a particular flight confirming that it is possible to bring your pet on that particular flight. Also, those online apps, excuse me, don't have any place to actually add pet, just number of adults and children kind of thing, you know. So you gotta talk to somebody. PAL was took a while to figure out. Um, there isn't. I couldn't find an online number to call. Um, Essentially, I went to the online chat. And then started explaining what I was trying to do, and then that turned into a phone call, and I think they called me. I don't quite remember. I think they called me, and then that worked out really, really good. But definitely, you need a live person for each of the airlines, and we booked directly with the airline for each segment. So I first booked my flight for the international section because I wanted a direct flight to minimize how much time my cat was going to be stressed out on that long flight, and then after that separately booked Alaskan Airlines from PDX down to LAX, PAL to Manila, and then I made a separate reservation from Manila to Davao. When we arrived in Manila, our connecting flight no longer would accept a pet. And they told us they had changed planes. After two rescheduled attempts for planes that turned out not to be set up for pets, we were told to come back for a 3 a.m. flight with a recommendation that if we checked in extra early by 12 midnight or by 12 midnight, we'd have the best chance of a pet suitable flight, meaning they'd have the right kind of plane for us or they'd have that cargo section set up. Um, I did a quick search for a pet friendly hotel. We wound up at some hotel I never heard of. It turned out to be a short time hotel that charged by the hour when we arrived. Decent enough accommodations. Oh well, we were tired, right? Dropped all our luggage in the garage section and made our way to the room. We ordered some food and beverage, set up the portable cat litter box, and slept for about 7 hours. Oh, by the way, we just got ourselves online on Amazon a little portable cat litter box, and we had they're simple. They've got it's just like a small tarp with little snaps in it. You snap them together, and boom, it's there. put down a puppy pad, sprinkle a little bit of litter box stuff in there, not a bunch, just a small amount. So the cat got the idea. Oh, that's a appropriate litter box, and cat was happy, easy to clean out, all that kind of stuff, and that did it. Um, in retrospect, I think it was good we wound up staying somewhere for a few hours. Um, the cat, when we first arrived, had a little white around its nose, and I quickly looked up online and found out that that was a sign of stress, which got me a little concerned. So, and then also after that long flight, it was good once we arrived to get a few hours of sleep. Um, so, in retrospect, staying somewhere or overnight or something, or for us, it was a few hours between, I don't know, 3 and 11 or something like that. We finally got to sleep. Might have been 4 or 5, but just a little bit extra, a little extra sleep, and then we made our next flight. We went back to the airport and then on our way to the Davao. Carry extra zip ties for the carrier. There are two holes provided top and bottom to prevent the door from accidentally being opened by the pad or movement of the cage in the cargo hold. Both the Philippines and Alaska Airlines, they require that. Customs in the U.S. and Philippines were required to open the cage, necessitating cutting the zip ties. Um, they didn't, you go board the plane, you can't carry a knife, but now you got to cut zip ties. Um, Took me a few minutes to figure out that one. Um, we just asked them for something to cut the zip ties with, and customers would ask somebody and grab us something, so that made it real easy. Um, we mispacked our zip ties in the wrong location and had trouble finding them, so I just asked if they had a spare zip tie and quickly got a couple of zip ties from the airline and reconnected it back up. Not a problem. Did that twice, once in LAX and once in Manila. Philippines is mostly a cash society. Some areas take debit credit cards, others don't. When we arrived, customs directed us to the animal import station. As in the U.S., prior to boarding the airline, we needed to take our pet out of the pet carrier for inspection. Online, I read about horror stories about cats getting scared and running off like they're prone to do. So my practice was to keep a cat harness, and we on our cat when she was in the carrier. We practiced putting it on and ensuring it was adjusted properly for our cat before we left the States and before we were traveling. We just asked, as I mentioned, customs to open up for tool to cut the zip ties, open the cage. I connected the leash that I kept handy, the harness I kept in my pocket, and didn't have to worry about the cat running off. At the import station, when you arrive in Manila or wherever you're importing to into the Philippines, you need to pay for the import fees and certificate that allows you to transport the cat domestically for a certain number of days. You'll need that for your connecting flight. So importing the cat and all the documentation. I don't know how much that was. I'm trying to think. It was maybe like $40, something like that, 20 something bucks, but definitely under $60. But they only accepted cash. For us, um, we were planning on um, uh, exchanging some money when we arrived. And so we went to a money exchange booth and exchanged some money into from dollars to pesos, and so we had that. And you can get to an ATM and that sort of thing prior to after you get off the plane and prior to getting to the little customs area. It was actually a short walk from that spot. After inspecting the cat, showing the approved import papers and health certificate, we just waited a few minutes and got the final paperwork, which is this little certificate that you need in order to do your connecting flight. The importing process is pretty easy. I mean, just as long as you've got your import papers are still valid because you didn't let them expire, and you've got that health certificate still within that 10-day window, that's pretty much all they're looking for. Oh, and the inspection of the cat to make sure it doesn't pose some sort of health risk. But your vet just looked at it like a couple of days prior, so it should be okay, right? Arrival at the final destination was a joy. We got into a good, well stocked, furnished condo. Cat used the travel litter box for a few days, and we had a few days of food supplies we packed with us. That allowed us to do some shopping for our human food supplies and some things we needed right away, and then get the cat set up later. Um, if you haven't been to the Philippines, being out of stock happens a lot. What stores keep in hand changes more than in the West. I searched in vain for a litter box at pet stores, only to finally ask it at one, do you know where I can get one? And they directed me to Ace Hardware in the mall. Um, about a month later, the other stores I went to before wound up with their cat litter boxes in stock, and so I'm probably going to go back at some point and get a better one. Um, but we've got one now, so I'm not in a hurry for that. Our cat is allergic to seafood, so we stock up on chicken, wet food when we can, as the brands change and shelves week to week. Cats can be a picky eater, and so when her favorite brands pop up, we try to grab a little extra just so that I don't get roughed up by the cat if we run out of her favorites. Um, it takes a few days to find out where and what's available where, but cat food and litter, pretty easy to find. In retrospect, our cat is like our family, our fur baby. Leaving her behind was not an option we wanted to consider. We'd like to think she was part of the planning process as she studied our whiteboard of to do lists to close down her life in the States for new adventures. But in reality, animals don't like change. Be cognizant of their needs and ensuring enough time between flights to de stress, eat, and have their travel cage cleaned. Rest assured, you'll find a place with a good view, especially birds happen to fly by the window regularly. Your cat will take to your new location and your new environment. The process may seem daunting, but you got this. If you have any questions or you've imported a pet and have some additional suggestions to help people out, put them in the comments below. African wildlife on the menu in Davao? At a restaurant? Oh, hell yeah. Let's check it out at the next episode of Our Permanent Vacation and answer the important question, does it taste like chicken? This is what retirement's all about.